welcome to Binging the Force with the Rocky Mountain Fan Force. I am Dale. Tonight we are jumping ahead in the timeline quite a bit. We're going all the way to The Mandalorian, Season 1, Chapter 1. Live action Star Wars happening for the first time. I've got a great round table of friends, Star Wars fans with me, starting with James. James, back in 2005, George Lucas announced at Celebration 3 that a live action Star Wars series was in the works. Is that something you think, did you think that was the progression, what that was going to happen with the series after the movies? Like Revenge of the Sith, movies were done and Star Wars TV was the next thing?
I wasn't really totally sure because following the prequels, I mean, the movies didn't resonate with a lot of people, but I mean, I guess I was surprised what they ended up doing. It ended up being pretty awesome, what we've gotten since.
Dale, I'd like to follow up on that.
Yeah.
I was, Jonathan and I, funny enough, we were at Celebration 3, and we were live in person to see George Lucas actually announce that he was going to create live action Star Wars. And at the time, man, I was so excited. And I can't remember if he said at Celebration or not if it was going to be Boba Fett themed. And I'm a very huge Boba Fett Mandalorian fan, always have been. I have a full-blown Boba Fett costume, but I just remember being there, hearing George Lucas lining up in line like at 3 a.m. with Jonathan to go see him at Celebration. It was pretty cool.
If I remember correctly, I believe that show that was announced at that point, that was supposed to be like a completely different, like all about the criminal underworld, where I'm sure that would have been a factor. But I think that was supposed to be just the overall major thrust of that show. It was about the criminal underbelly of the Star Wars universe.
Exactly. Star Wars Underworld was that kind of working title for that Boba Fett series. Jonathan, is that something you would have enjoyed seeing as a Boba Fett TV series, or a Boba Fett movie? Which format did you think was better?
Well, yeah, Shane, I do remember, those days. That was pretty awesome back in the day. So that's why I've got my subtitle here. Joined the RMF a long time ago, and that was actually one of the first things I went to was me and Shane hanging out at that convention. And those were the days when, like, if you heard Star Wars news or like a promise of something that was coming that was Star Wars, you believed it. That's what you knew was going to happen next, because that's, of course, the next thing that they were working on, right? And so I was like, all right, that sounds cool. I could do that. Like a Boba Fett show, I don't know. I mean, you do like Boba Fett because he does evoke those kind of like the Western archetype, right? Of like the lone cowboy, the one who is fighting for, truth and justice on their own to try to, and making their way in the world. Right. So can you do a whole movie on somebody like that who had like 10 lines in 2 movies there and died? So it's like, oh, I don't know. That's good. But is that really where you want to like take your franchise next? I mean, it was shocking to think that like now we're going to get more Star Wars that was not the Skywalker family. Right. So that was a huge deal for us fans at that time to try to think what's going to happen with our Star Wars going from here. But at least they were thinking of something happening afterwards at that point, which is good.
Yep. Dan, did you think a Boba Fett story would be best served in the theaters, or were you just happy to see any kind of new Star Wars entertainment?
I really think any kind of new entertainment's great. Even if they took a character that had so few lines and so little screen time, if they got a really good writer, and they did, to do it, it could be a huge hit, because people love that character. As little time as he had, people are already on board with that character. Like Shane, or he has a full costume for somebody who had so little screen time. If they did that character service well, then of course it was going to be a huge hit. So yeah, I was looking forward to seeing. Disney has plenty of money; they can throw it at whatever writer they want to come in there and do a great job.
But none of that was in place at the time, right? Like if we think back to 2005, when prequels were done, Don't know what's coming next. They hadn't announced any sort of sequel movies.
That was pre-Clone Wars, wasn't it?
It was pre-Clone
Well,
Wars.
it was pre-Disney. Way
Yeah, it was
pre-Disney.
pre-Disney announcement, exactly. So you're like, okay, well, if something's going to come next, it's going to come only from Lucasfilm. And they talked about like these scripts for this Underworld TV show. We've got 10 scripts done, and they're like trying to shop it around and try to find a way to make it happen with a budget that they need and put it on some sort of like television network, right? This is all before streaming as well. So like, where would it show up? ABC? I don't even know. So it was hard to think about the realities of a Star Wars TV show being broadcast.
But then it was shelved, right?
Those
I mean, it was
platforms
shelved
didn't
for
even
Yeah, it was
exist,
totally
yeah.
scrapped. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
And then as a Star Wars fan, I was honestly very disappointed because I always wanted to explore the character of Boba Fett, and then when I heard that The Mandalorian was coming out, as a new character, never heard anything about, and being so much of a fan of Boba Fett, as obviously hoping that maybe someday that character would be introduced.
I don't know if we even knew at the time when The Mandalorian was announced. I don't know if we knew that it was not going to be Boba Fett. I mean,
That's true.
I think there was so little information about it when it was first announced that, it could have been Boba Fett. It could have not been Boba Fett. I mean, and especially for people who didn't watch the Clone Wars, or didn't watch the Clone Wars like extensively. I know they did a lot of Mandalorians in there, but I mean, something to keep in mind as we kind of go into the episode. Remember that for the majority of non kind of really heavy duty Star Wars fans, for general public kind of Star Wars fans, all they know is the movies. And all they know is Boba Fett when there's a Mandalorian. Yeah. So this was going to be something totally brand new for their
Yeah, because we're not introduced to these guys till Empire Strikes Back, right? When
I guess you would be
especially
introduced
on that Star Destroyer and stuff. In
A New Hope, actually, in when Lucas recut A New Hope.
Yeah, the recut, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, the very first appearance of Boba Fett, and this will come up later. I was, going to refer to some stuff came in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh yeah,
it was like the couple minute animated short that was in between the Star Wars Holiday Special. That was the first appearance technically of Boba Fett. He appeared there before Empire Strikes Back.
And I still have not watched that. I've avoided it this long.
We should at least watch the Boba Fett short. I wouldn't say watch the whole holiday special, but watch the Boba Fett short. Because really, the Boba Fett short sets up a promise, and the whole character of Boba Fett set up a promise for what a Mandalorian was and what people built it in their minds, especially you, Shane. For how people built up this character, as to how cool this character could be, and how cool a Mandalorian can be, in a way that does not get fulfilled as a promise, in my opinion, until episode 1 that we're going to be watching tonight.
Yeah. Unfortunately, for everyone that wanted to see a Boba Fett movie, Bob Iger wanted something to compete with Netflix and wanted to stop making content for Netflix. So Disney Plus came along. They needed something to help launch the service. So that brings us up to November 12th, 2019, when Disney Plus launched, and at 4 a.m. On launch day is when this episode came out. The same day that the McCarthy version of A New Hope came out. So very memorable Star Wars day there.
Oh, and Jon Favreau launching out, the Mandalorian universe, I think is really poetic because he launched the MCU with Iron Man, and I just think it's really cool. I love that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. I like their vision and really what they're driving to right now.
Yep, because this episode was written by Jon Favreau and directed by Dave Filoni.
Yeah,
right.
Two kids playing with the Star Wars toys in the toy box, right? Just having a good time.
There you go. Now, these episodes, having debuted on the streaming service, there's no set runtime. There's no ad breaks, no commercial breaks, like that. Do you think that's a good idea? That they just kind of take as much time as they need for the
that's a good question. I think that when you have a cultural shift of people going from watching TV shows on TV at a certain time on a network with commercials to watching stuff on streaming networks, right? Binging episodes. just sitting down and plowing through all these episodes that used to be on TV and have those commercial breaks. Now it's just like, well, I'm just going to watch. It's only 20 minutes long, right? I'm not going to watch 3 or 4 or 5 or 100 of these, you know? So I think that really kind of reprogrammed how we absorb and watch shows. Like, we don't even say it's a TV show now. You just watch it, you see that episode, you see that show, right? And so I think that sometimes it is a lot to ask of your audiences, but, you know, people these days, I think it's pretty standard. You sit down, you're going to watch something 40 minutes, 50 minutes straight through, no commercial breaks. But there is still kind of like that attention span. I think that's still a part of kind of leftover from TV of our attention span of 20 minutes, 30-minute block or an hour block when it comes to consuming the media.
You
So
know,
I think it's good what they did, but it's still kind of a vestigial of how we used to watch shows.
a lot of the streaming services are smart though. They're releasing episodes like once a week. You know, HBO did it with Game of Thrones, and it really became again like TV, like old school, right? It was an event, right? You really wanted to see. You didn't want to necessarily wait, whatever, 24 hours or 36 hours, whenever the episode would be available or something. So I know with like Mandalorian, my wife and I, and she didn't really like Star Wars that much, but she looked forward every week for us to watching an episode because she wanted to see what happened to Grogu, right?
He's the draw.
Exactly. So speaking of, anyone else want to get into this?
I brought my child back here to watch and enjoy, see himself up on the big screen.
Nice.
I think as long as they keep the pacing good during the episodes, it doesn't. As long as they stay under an hour, I think you'll be able to keep somebody in for a whole episode. Mm-hmm. But like you said, when people are binging 6 episodes at a time, they can get along. They don't have to have a set amount of time. It doesn't have to be just 30 minutes or 45 minutes. They can.
Yeah, and it really does vary. It varies between like 30 and like 43 or so. Seems to be like kind of sweet spot to vary between. With at the absolute max when they've got like major episodes, closer to an hour is about as much as big as they go on Disney Plus shows, and that applies to Marvel as well.
Well, I think
like
you
you
get 10 minutes
watch the show just to fill in the time that you have. So like if you have 2 hours, maybe you'll fill it with watching episodes instead of thinking about, okay, well, am I going to watch 1 episode or 2 episodes? But you don't want to watch like a full movie. You'll just fill that time binging. I don't know. That's my.
I was gonna say, people will say like they're reticent to watch a whole movie, but they'll sit down, they'll start with the first episode, and next thing they know, they're on the 6th episode. It's a great model. It's definitely been working, and I mean, so essentially, like instead of like a 2-hour movie, when you get a season of these shows, you're getting like 5 2-hour movies.
Yep.
Sorry, Shane. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I just said that they have like 10 minutes of credits at the end of each episode, which is very disappointing. You're like, oh, I still have like 15 minutes left. And then you're like, oh, 10 minutes of credits.
Now you can also skip that intro too, right? That's a thing.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what we're actually going to be doing here is we'll be we won't have the intro stuff, and I realized I did cut out the end credits with all the like really amazing artwork and everything.
Oh yeah,
we'll add that back in starting next week.
Yeah, I love those. I love those at the end. I would watch them because the artwork's really cool. The conceptual.
Well, it's so reminiscent of Ralph McQuarrie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I really feel the Mandalorian in this live action Star Wars has so much in common with that Ralph McQuarrie art from back in the day, and it just really just. I love that art. That's Star Wars.
Okay, we're ready to move forward.
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get us into the next segment. I'm actually watching Chapter 1 of The Mandalorian, called The Mandalorian.
A long time ago. A galaxy far, far away. There was a black screen.
Yep, I'm noticing that.
Utter blackness.
Video.
Dan, I think we picked a good spot. You're down in your man cave here.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. And boom, a cold open just jumps right into the action with the hero on the screen. No crawl. No, not even anything. More cold than Rogue One.
Get it cold open.
I just love this intro. It's just so like Western themed, but sci-fi at the same time. It's just so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Western theme, I mean, this is so much Western, spaghetti Western, right? You've got the lone cowboy walking into the bar. You can hear like the ching ching of the spurs on his boots as he comes in, right?
Yeah, the big thing we're missing here is the music is such a big part of the experience. I mean, I think we all rewatched it beforehand, but I mean, Ludwig Göransson's music is like I'm not a Western fan. I mean, it was really a stretch for me to really get into the show with it really being such a Western thing, but his music really makes it work.
Totally.
So, these guys go and approach this Mando. I mean, seriously, why would you do that? You're messing with fire, if you ask me.
Right? I mean, they know who he is. They said, "Hey, Mando." It's not like they don't know who he is. I mean, does he not have a reputation yet?
Well,
don't mess with me.
But that's exactly what we're establishing for the audience here is that, they may know that, but, the audience needs to be established on that and needs to be told that, for sure. It's like I said, we're fulfilling the promise of what Mandalorians were, that we never got realized with the 6 minutes of time that we got of Boba Fett, with 3 of it being taken up with him getting taken out like a punk in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're actually familiar with this specific Mando. I think that's just how they talk. It's a real class kind of thing. Anyone in that outfit, they call him Mando.
Oh, this part's so awesome.
Some Mando might say, "Hey, my name's Steve or Gary."
Cuts him in half, man. Oh, I love this. It's so cool.
Yeah.
There's no safety measures.
This was going to be a different kind of show.
This is not your granddad's Star Wars.
Yeah.
How did he make that work? How did he get that door to?
Well, the door does whatever you need it to do. You shoot it, it opens, it closes, or it stays still, whatever the plot demands.
And then, of course, this guy now thinks he's been saved by the Mandalorian. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to give you some money. Hey, I got lots of money. I will pay you. Thanks so much." And he's like, "Yeah, that's not what we're doing here."
What's going on here, my friends?
I did find this character to be a little annoying, though.
Yeah, but that was the idea. I mean, it's setting it up with some comic relief right up the front. It's played by Horatio Sands, who used to be on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, yeah.
So it's definitely intended to be kind of comic relief there. But yeah, I like I can bring you in, alive. I can bring you in dead. I can bring you in hot. I can bring you in cold. Your choice, and it establishes the Mandalorian. That's what we're talking about here. We established because we always knew he was a bounty hunter and we'd seen the other bounty hunters. But again, I would call that an unrealized promise of Star Wars was, what bounty hunter life was like, and actually seeing bounty hunters being, the bad mofos that, that we were told that they were, but we never got to see it.
I think this show is interesting. They show that it's not all glamorous and things go wrong all the time. I think that's what really struck me, this first episode was watching that.
Yeah, and then establishing here, the first ride that shows up, it's what you would think a land speeder, but a land speeder comes with an R2 unit, and he's like, "I don't do droids. I won't go anywhere near droids," and he pays him extra to replace it with something quote unquote better, but what he gets is something crappier. I mean, it's like, yeah, sure, I'll take your money and give you something different than what I was offering you, and he gets something way worse, that's barely working.
Well, I don't know about better, but definitely just doesn't have a droid in it, right?
Right, doesn't have a droid. I don't know that swapping a droid for Brian Posehn was an upgrade, but
the droid was an Uber. He's like, "No, I'm a Lyft guy. I've got to take it."
Well, like the Kubas, a good callback. They were in Star Wars, of course. They were the snitches to the stormtroopers. Yeah. Told them where Docking Bay 94 was. So good to see them again.
Yeah, and they're musical.
Yeah, he didn't play an instrument in Star Wars, so that was kind of cool.
So all this is being filmed in that new dome.
The volume, yeah, it's a good thing to bring up. Yep, the volume is basically where instead of paying to go out to somewhere snowy and spend a whole lot of money to bring a cast and a crew to another country, which they did for all the movies to film these kind of environments, they basically invented something brand new called the volume, where they're inside a closed set, where the entire set around them, is all LED screens that are then projecting that image. And because it's projecting it with such brightness on them, from a lighting standpoint, they're actually getting lit for the environment that they would actually be in if they were actually there. So all they're doing is they're building the set. So they're building all the physical things around them that they need to interact with, but everything else around them is all on an LED screen.
Yeah.
Well, and isn't that part of the reason why the original Boba Fett series was canceled? Is because Lucas couldn't get the movie quality.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was part of it. I mean, it's always been such an expensive thing. So they're basically, this is it was an expensive thing to create the first time, but now as they reuse it, the cost goes down dramatically versus going on location.
This technology made it possible.
Yeah, this show, all the Star Wars shows so far, done on Disney Plus, would not have been possible without this technology. It just would have been too expensive. And as it is, we know Disney Plus is running in the red. They're losing money on it, but they'd be losing so much more money if they had to do all of this stuff on location. It just, the shows would have looked so much worse,
Yeah.
Dan, you're asking about if you use foul language. Dank Farrick apparently is what we can say.
That's our first sighting of Dank Farrick there.
Right. Our sub curse words here.
So this is a great callback right here to that holiday special. The weapon.
Yeah, that's where I was going to bring it up. I'll let you do it, Shane.
Oh no, just because that's he would ride the mythosaur, right? And which talks about it later on, in this episode, I think. And then the weapon that Boba Fett has is very iconic, right? It's essentially that two-pronged gun, and here, this is the first time that's really brought into the Star Wars universe. So to me, it's very iconic, that weapon.
Yeah. I mean, we see it on him in the movies, but we don't really see him use it. I mean, the only time we really got to see it, not him, but a Mandalorian use that weapon was in the animated, segment in the holiday special. So now we've actually brought it and made it a real working weapon here.
And it's so cool because throughout the first few episodes here, just the different uses it has, it's interesting weapon.
I'm going to put it on you. What's it called? Because I don't remember.
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh man, that's a sad moment for me.
I do have to say it was brilliant that they're bringing in brand new characters, but they hook you in with a land speeder and an R2 unit like in the first few minutes.
Yep, it is still the Star Wars that we know and love,
Well,
so Commando's ship here, doesn't it look a little bit like when the Attack of the Clones? I don't forget the technical name, but one of the attack kind of ship,
Republic gunships,
right? And the guy who he got, I mean, I guess the guy here that he's taking in, I mean, he noticed right off the bat and said it. This is an old Razor Crest, so it's basically an older ship from the Republic era that has kind of had better days, and that's what he's riding around in now.
Right. It's interesting because he makes it sound like it should be a familiar thing to all of us, even though, having watched all of the Clone Wars, we've never seen this shit before.
So is this the first time there's ever been I need to use a toilet reference in a Star Wars?
This is the first toilet humor. I mean, other than the sound effects, really, and Jar Jar stepping in the poo, right?
And actually seeing it, and him actually talking about it being a vacuum thing.
Yes.
And he opens this up.
I like that his ship looks very lived in and a little more grimy and stuff. We get a little more grimy and not so sanitized like the Empire ships and stuff.
Well, and not like all the prequels. I mean, all the prequels, everything just, doing CGI for everything. Yeah. Everything just looked too clean and pristine. Here, everything looks, it looks like it should, which is, the original trilogy, because we're 5 years after the original trilogy. We're 9 BBY, or no, ABY, 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So, this should look more like the original trilogy than the prequel trilogy.
So who are the people in Carbonite? Are they friends of the shows, or I wonder if there's any kids?
Kind of looks like Lucas, but
I'm sure they are someone. I'm sure each of them is the likeness of someone.
Maybe the grip guy or something got to add his little.
Yeah, they kept the Carbonite sound effect in play there.
Oh yes.
Yep.
There's also a good reference there. He said he's trying to get home for Life Day. So 2 holiday special references in the first 7 minutes of the show.
Right.
For better or for worse.
Something that Lucasfilm still considers did not exist. It never happened.
Well, George Lucas definitely does.
It's canon now.
Hey, if that's something we want to add to the Binging the Force Star Wars for us to cover, maybe we should. Just a little bit of holiday special.
Well, I definitely think we could look at the Boba Fett short. I think that would be worth looking at.
So I guess he brought him in cold, and maybe those other guys too.
Yeah. He brought him in cold, and now he's got to get his money. And of course, now we're back on Tatooine because we always are back on Tatooine.
This isn't Tatooine.
It's not Tatooine. I thought it was.
No.
It's Arvala 7.
Oh, okay.
But it looks like a typical bar you'd see Tatooine any place else. Yeah.
And with Apollo Creed in it. I mean, come on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely out in the boonies, out in the sticks.
Yeah, definitely that's something that gets established here is that we are on the outer rim. So, I mean, we are not in the main thoroughfare of either the Republic or the Empire. Neither one of them, really had a lot of influence out here. It was always more of the Wild West.
Well, and the struggling for money, right? After the fall of the Empire, what's credits are valid,
Right. Yeah. The conversation they have about the money. It's like, all I've got is Republic credit or Empire credits. And it's like, the Empire is gone, which establishes us past, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
No, I haven't read all the different books. Did they talk a lot about the Mandalorians in any of the extended universe books?
I mean, I'm sure there are, but I know Clone Wars did cover them a lot. There's a lot of Mandalorian stuff in Clone Wars.
Oh yeah, especially with Obi-Wan and the Darksaber and Darth Maul. I mean, just around those characters themselves, there's a lot of
right. And if you haven't seen the trailer for season 3 of Mandalorian, I mean, season 3 of Mandalorian basically starts showing us the live action stuff for the first time that they brought out of Mandalorians in Clone Wars. It's really bringing that into live action.
Right, Mandalore showing the destruction. I wonder if we'll actually see parts of the actual destruction of Mandalore,
Possibly. But we're definitely going to see Mandalore.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's interesting that these are all seedy characters. They're bounty hunters, but they still like the mafia, right? They have rules to follow, and they're actually part of a union.
Yeah, the Assassins Guild or the Bounty Hunters Guild. They have a code. They have rules and everything.
Got to have order and everything, I guess.
Yeah. Or it's just chaos.
So here he's sending him on a new mission. He's like, do you want it? It's top secret. I don't even have a picture of the person you're going after. Because that's normally what he gets. Is he normally gets that thing that he was showing. The other character.
The little pups.
That you were my bounty, and is like he doesn't get one of those for this one. He's like, do you want it? Because it's a lot of money.
Just kind of shows who Mando is, right? He's willing to take the chance. He's willing to go after the big payouts. But
and then he takes just about any job because he showed up with 4 or 5 chits bringing back, and he was saying whatever jobs you've got, I will take them all. He's like, I've got other people, I've got other bounty. I was like, I don't care, I want them all.
He wants the high payout, not necessarily the quantity. Yeah. And this is cool too. I like seeing him walking through the streets. Right, you can see
it's a cool
streets of Star Wars. How run down it is.
Yeah,
look, it looks like Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, he's at Galaxy's Edge.
Have they started Mando theming it?
We've seen that kind of security system before.
Just the Mando and Boba walking around.
Oh, that's it.
I don't think they have any droid, whatever that droid is, popping out of doors at Galaxy's Edge.
I wonder if they have one of these Mando bases, on a bunch of different planets, where you can just walk over and
check
in.
You got to unlock that level in Galaxy's Edge.
I love this scene too. It's just he's just like, look at me, I'm a badass here, guys, and you're just lowly little stormtroopers.
And plus, we're seeing that stormtroopers still exist 5 years after Return of the Jedi, but they're all kind of beat up and everything like that. They're not getting any new armor.
Yeah, no, they look cool. Okay, Dan, this is why we brought you on tonight. You are our resident Rick and Morty fan. Tell us about Werner Herzog.
Oh. Yeah, Werner.
I only know him from a couple of different movies.
Okay.
Well, I mean, he's a director primarily, and has directed a large number of famous films.
He's got a distinctive voice there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he narrated a movie with the guy that went and followed the bears around. I don't know if you ever saw that one. This crazy hippie guy. He lived out in Alaska and he followed the bears. And this guy, Herzog, did a documentary on him. and
Oh, is it
narrated the whole
Lizard Man,
thing.
the guy that got eaten by the bear?
Yeah, he got eaten by the bear at the end of it.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah, I mean, some of his famous films, Gear, The Wrath of God, Nosferatu, the Vampire, the 1979 version, Rescue Dawn in 2006.
He's a great actor. You know, one actor.
Does have the
Director.
Imperial
Yeah, he's
Signal.
really directing is something he's done maybe like
Oh,
4 or 5 times in his life, but he's a real world class, one of the top directors in the world.
So is he affiliated with the Empire, right?
Oh, yeah.
Clients.
I just got
look at his
old money.
little Big Daddy like necklace there. It's the Empire necklace there.
Well, this is 5 years after the fall of the Empire, or 5 or 9
Yeah.
or whatever,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep, 5 years after the fall of the Empire.
yeah.
You know, I have to say, Pedro Pascal is great as Mando. I mean,
Yeah.
even if he's just like the mannerisms that he does, and you don't even see his face, it does. The acting is so good behind that helmet. And I don't know if you guys have started watching The Last of Us, but
Yeah.
you know, it seems like they're very similar type of roles in a way, where Pedro Pascal is playing this rescuer that's helping someone along, which he does in Mando as well. And it's cool to see. You can see the mannerisms in the actor in both, you know, shows, and I feel like they're very similar. And he's such a good actor.
Yeah, I haven't started watching it just because I'm not a gamer. I don't know the game, but I keep hearing really, really good things about the show, and obviously, you know, big fan of his, especially after this show and everything.
Yeah.
You know, so and I came to it being excited about him from him having been in Game of Thrones. So
Oh yeah.
I would say that they've, you know, with this show and the other shows that's followed, they've done a great job of casting. They haven't cheaped out. You know, these aren't CW like episodes and stuff. They've really brought their A game to
Oh, yeah.
casting.
yeah, the quality, the casting, the
I
music,
mean, really good actors, accomplished actors.
Yeah,
He's got to
I
get
think
that little dig in there as he's walking out, right? Get this Beskar back to Mandalorians after a period of disarray. Like, thank you for taking this job, but I'm still going to do a little dig at the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Delicious.
no, but I think isn't the disarray that he's talking about? He's talking about the disarray of, like, you know, the fall of the Empire.
I love all the
Mandalorians.
What blew me away with
details. Sorry.
I think what blew me away with Pedro Pascal is, and later on when he takes his helmet off in that episode, and how uncomfortable he looked because you hadn't seen his face for so long.
Yep.
And that's
Did a
weird,
great
right?
job.
So, like, Michael, in all superhero movies, I know you talked about how you have to get the mask off of the
Right.
hero because you
Yep.
want to see the face of that actor.
Yep,
But in
it
this
happens
show, it's
in it.
unusual.
Right.
You don't get to see
And I heard rumors. I don't know if it's true or not that Pedro Pascal is having issues with the helmet, always having to wear the helmet, and like I don't know if that's
I
true.
mean, but
or
that
not.
was part of the job. I mean, when he took the job, and it's what people loved about it. It's one of the things people loved about it is, yeah, it is unusual. Like Jonathan said, you know, they never do that in a superhero film. In a superhero film, if the superhero has a mask and they've cast a known named actor in the role, you guaranteed at some point they're going to spend time with their mask off because you paid for that actor's face. And so here, you know, they got an amazing actor with Pedro Pascal and made the decision to say, you know, hey, we're going to establish right off the bat that the Mandalorian sect that he belongs to, they don't take off their helmets ever.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and it's really confusing here. The first time I saw this with the armorer and trying to understand, you know, what is going on in sort of the hierarchy. You know, it's really confusing at first, but interesting as you start to follow it more.
Yeah, what the culture is and what the rules are and everything. And we find out, I mean, even if you'd watched the Clone Wars, this is a very different sect of Mandalorians than what we've ever seen before.
Yeah, there's no clan, there's no tribe. You know, she asked him about his signet, and he's kind of like, well, if I had one, I would get it from you. I don't know, but
and it's,
oh, go ahead.
And as we find out later, I mean, it's really made up primarily of Mandalorians by choice. It's not made up of people who are from Mandalore, which is what primarily we had seen before. You know, and then we find out there's an element of that with Boba Fett as well. You know, that you know, these are primarily Mandalorians who are not from Mandalore. They are a lot like him, foundlings. I mean, not all of them. There are some actual Mandalorians, but then there's that dichotomy as well of basically the true Mandalorians. You know, even the ones in the sect looking down in some cases on foundlings, on people who became Mandalorians by choice.
Well, and it's like, anyone could be a Mandalorian. I mean, Grogu is a Mandalorian at this point, and he's just a tiny little Yoda guy, which is cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of the show is not just plot, right? It's also you're showing character, you're showing the culture of this set of people, right? And the values that they have, who they are, what makes them different from other Mandalorians. And they're taking a lot of time showing the creation of this piece of armor. And, kind of course, he's having these flashbacks, of course, but it's like Mandalorian show is not just about the Mandalorian. It's also about Mandalorian culture and how this character fits in with that larger concept of Mandalorian culture.
Well, it's a great little sequence there, just kind of cutting back and forth between, him saying he was a foundling, her saying she knows, she's building him this new piece of armor using the Beskar that he got for this job. And, and it intercuts with the beginnings of us finding out what his story is, because we don't really know. It takes us several episodes to really find out like what his deal is, why he has a problem with droids, how he became a Mandalorian, where he came from. We get flashes of it there, but that's just a really tease for what we're going to get later on.
Well, and what's really cool about that sequence is that's the first live action sequence we've ever had of the actual Clone Wars in action, right? Other than episode 2. That's it. Which is obviously we get more later on, but that's really cool.
My assumption is that whatever she's heating that Beskar on, I mean, it's got to be something really, really special. It can't just be a standard forge. It can't just be a regular flame, because if that were the case, a laser would definitely penetrate Beskar. The Beskar armor, the end all be all, as we find out of Mandalorian armor, the hardest substance basically in the galaxy.
It has to be.
You wouldn't be able to melt it
in a
easily. So
certain
for her
way
to
and
do
everything,
that, she's got to have like a very, very special kiln there.
Yeah, traditional skills or whatever to fashion it.
Yeah, the Beskar, it's like the vibranium of Star Wars. It does what's convenient for the plot. So.
True, because as we get into the later seasons, they do start adding more information and properties to it, especially in relation as to the differences or the battles between Jedi and Mandalorians. Comes down to what can affect a lightsaber versus what can affect Beskar.
Well, and then right here, this dude is chewing on his arm. And that's Beskar, maybe not pure Beskar like his shoulder pauldron, but
I think it is. I think it's Beskar, but I mean, the idea is that it's a beat up older armor that he had essentially inherited or had pieced together himself, and now what she's building him, we later find out, is a brand new set of armor.
Well, and I don't think it's just brand new set of armor. I don't think all Beskar is created equal. I think there's more pure versions than others, and I think that's why his Beskar that he gets is so valuable, is because it's essentially pure Beskar, which is like the best
24 karat Beskar.
Yeah.
And showing that, because it starts off with him look like he's invincible and nothing can touch him, and showing him right after that these things could have chewed him apart if this guy hadn't come in and saved him, was a pretty good move.
And this guy being Nick Nolte, so again, no skimping on the voice casting.
Looks almost just like him too.
yeah. After 7 decades of drinking, yes.
Well, I love the line too. I have spoken. That I remember when this first came out, a lot of people were quoting that.
Yeah, I have spoken.
I wonder what the order was. If they're like, let's have an Ugnaught character who could play an Ugnaught, or was it, hey, how do we get Nick Nolte into Star Wars, and what species could we make him look like?
And why Nick? Why him? Right? I mean, what's special about him being in the Star Wars universe? Right.
Right.
I'm guessing Nick Nolte looks like an Ugnaught. That's what I think.
Yeah, so they made the Ugnaught mask, and they were like, you know what? That looks like Nick Nolte. Let's get him to play it. Or do the voice.
I mean, I just love the overall thing from Filoni and oh, sorry, finish, Dale.
He obviously it's not Nick Nolte in the suit. It's Misty Rosas is the performer there, but it's the same as Mando. There's no guarantee that is Pedro Pascal in this scene. It could be Brendan Wayne, the stunt double. That definitely was not Pedro Pascal falling down. But it's interesting that they've got these big names, but you're not seeing their face.
And it's interesting him suggesting that he'd be easier if he took off his helmet, not knowing, that's a thing. Him never taking his helmet off is definitely a thing to him. It's his core kind of value and religious belief.
Well, I love in was it Book of Boba Fett, the finale when the Rancor tries to bite his head and the helmet just is like dink dink dink.
It's very Westernized.
I mean, to me, I love what I was trying to say before on Dale's thing was with it being an Ugnaught. I mean, I just think it was a great thing to it could be anything. They could have made it anything that looked like anything to be that character, but they chose to bring back something from Return of the Jedi and show Ugnaughts.
Actually, I think Ugnaughts we've only saw them on Cloud City in Empire.
Oh, really? I thought it was I thought weren't there? No, I think you're right. Yeah.
Empire.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that they were in the palace and Jabba's palace.
No, I don't think they were in there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Shane, I thought you were going to say you really enjoyed the blurgs in the Battle for Endor, that it was your favorite of the Ewok films. So.
Well, these blurg, that's what these things are, right? Blurgs?
Yeah.
We've never seen them before, right? This is the first time.
Just Battle for Endor.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a blaster that's called the blurg as well.
Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, so again, this is fulfilling some of the promise from the animated short. It was basically him, riding these kind of creatures, and that's the guy says that to him. It's like, you're a Mandalorian. You can ride the mythical beasts and everything. And this is part of your culture and everything. And we saw our initial introduction to Boba Fett, if you haven't seen the animated short, is him doing this kind of stuff. Is basically him being out in the desert and really defeating these kind of creatures and really mastering these kind of creatures. So again, overused phrase at this point, but we're fulfilling the promise of Mandalorians.
Yeah. What's really cool about this is this is just sort of the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, heck, we get Mando later on top of a was it a dewback, I think, and then we get Mando on top of. Don't
we get a bunch of that? I think in the next episode.
Yeah. Then we also get, the crown, finale of it all, right, was when Boba was on that Rancor. I mean, it just sort of leads up to it, just one step at a time, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To be a good bounty hunter, he has to master all of his surroundings, right? So
that's
why he's as good as he is.
Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
That's why he's as good as he is. He can kind of blend in and do whatever he needs to do in all these different planets, all these different environments.
Yeah, and that's the idea, is that a Mandalorian has those kind of skills and why they have the reputation they have. But I like here that the guy won't take money for helping him out. He's like, all I wanted was one of the blurgs because, that's something I could use. But it's like, I'm helping you out because, what's going on here on the planet is messing up my planet. And, if you're the Mandalorian, like I've heard about Mandalorians, you're going to be able to solve this problem and then my life will be better. So I'm just going to help you out for that reason.
Get this kid out of here.
Montage.
Yeah, then there will be peace.
I think it's interesting how Star Wars addresses kind of the natural world and technology too. They always seem to, go back to the natural world, whether it's the Ewoks or, some primitive race or creature or something that typically sometimes has a better advantage than technology. They're more useful.
Well, I love at this moment, right? When you first see this episode for the very first time, you have no idea what the bounty is that he's getting, right? And this is sort of leading up to that, and the surprises that are coming here at the finale of the episode, like the IG droid. You never got to see one really other than in the lineup, in Empire, and just there's so many references to, I feel, original Star Wars with Empire Strikes Back in this is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, my original avatar on our old Fan Force board was IG-88. It's definitely a character that I always was into from the sole visual appearance on Empire Strikes Back. But again, we never saw what that droid could do. Everyone looked at this non-moving, mechanical, stilted looking thing there and going like, how is that a bounty hunter? And now we see how he can be a bounty hunter. That this is not IG-88, it's IG-11, but it's definitely a droid of the same model. And so we're seeing okay, here's how he could be a bounty hunter and be a real bad one too.
That original bounty hunter lineup, he really looked like the weakest thing there. He looked like some kind of coffee maker and or drink mixer. And as we'll hear in a second, he's impressive.
He is very impressive,
and he thinks in 360 degrees, right? So like,
That's
he's
so
not
cool.
limited to where he can see. Like he's shooting all around him.
Well,
He
and the
does
way
most of the work.
oh yeah, the way he walks and maneuvers is just so cool. And then
It's very-
to top
very
it off,
alien
man,
robotic.
Taika Waititi is the voice.
Yeah, yeah. Having Taika Waititi be the voice really helped too. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I feel like if the droid wasn't there, then Mando would have been screwed because the droid takes out most of these guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and definitely
good
like
stuff, though.
these are not stormtroopers who can't hit anything. I mean, these bounty hunters. Again, we're really getting to see the real bounty hunter life and why people are afraid of bounty hunters and why people are afraid of IG droids that are bounty hunters. Why people are afraid of Mandalorians that are bounty hunters. They show up here and all they care about is their bounty, and they don't care about who they're killing on the way to do it. And there's a lot of people getting killed on the way to get into their bounty.
Yeah.
Well, is it sort of weak sauce though? He's just using a little like hand blaster. He doesn't have like some cool his cool gun from before. I don't know. I think they could have upped it a little bit.
Oh, they're gonna up it in a couple minutes here.
Oh yeah, for sure. But maybe that's why they only had him with his little hand blasters.
Maybe because we're gonna build to something here.
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah, I mean,
behind the back shot.
I mean, the IG-11 is even above. Mando goes above and like. Yeah, he's not only operating in 360. I don't know what you would call it to take 360 and then add, above as well.
He thinks three-dimensionally.
Yeah, in 3 dimensions as well. Yeah.
Oh, then he's like, okay, I'm just gonna kill myself.
Yeah.
It's hilarious here. That like, okay, I'm captured. I'm cornered. My programming says I can't be captured. I'm gonna blow myself up. It'll kill you. It'll kill them. Mando's like, no.
Why is he think he's going to be captured? Like nobody's even gotten a shot on this IG-11 so far.
Yeah.
Well, what's great is at the end of this episode, you think IG-11 he's gone, right? But you get him later.
Hey, spoilers, man.
Well, you get him as the nanny droid, which is even
I
better.
know.
Wait for it.
Yeah, just wait for it. We're gonna get to everything.
So it's like to point out these are Niktos, familiar from Return of the Jedi, Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
Glad they're back.
Oh,
And
here we
here's
go.
the big gun. So
Oh yeah.
Long enough.
yeah, and again he goes with the self-destruct. Do not self-destruct.
And I'm surprised he listened to the Mando. He's a robot. You think, all right, well, this is my prime directive, and he
Yeah, he
violated.
keeps wanting to
Taking myself out.
And he sees that gun. New plan.
Well, I love here how he's depending on the droid and he hates droids. It's sort of a cool idea.
We learn how much he hates droids and why, but he decides here to work with the droid. I mean, he'll still do what he needs to in the moment to survive.
Oh, he's getting torn up pretty good there, though.
Yeah. And the wire, the shooting wire. Another Mando trademark. And
There you
now
go.
he's got the big gun, and he takes out a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just hope that he doesn't accidentally kill his bounty, right?
Right.
Well, but it sounds like most of the bounties you can bring in alive or dead. It just in some cases might be less money for dead,
Was that like 30 people dead there? Gee.
at least.
So remind me again, who are these guys working for and why are they holding this bounty?
They're pirates.
They're working for Werner Herzog, who basically told them, you're going after a living being. All you will tell you is
the Nikto guards.
The
What?
guards. Yeah, who are the guards working for?
Oh, gotcha. That is a good question.
They never touch on that.
Yeah, like who's trying to keep them away from here?
Yeah,
I mean-
who's trying to keep the bounty safe?
Right, and who's leaving the bounty sitting in a sealed creche, just sitting there by itself without anyone in front of it.
Right.
Like once they get into the building, there's no one in the building.
So what did they use to open that up with?
The big gun.
A
You
big
think?
gun.
Because they're standing right there, right away.
Yeah, but that's what he had said is, how are we going to get in? And he used the big gun.
Oh, I guess there was one guy.
Okay, there was one guy.
Last
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
stand.
Mando's like anyone else. And all they had was the tracking. So all they knew was the tracking fob to get them to who they were looking for. They don't know a race. They don't know anything. They don't know a gender. They just know it's 50 years old. That's all Werner Herzog told them. So think back to as we're all watching this the first time, and going like, okay, it's a Western, great. What's the deal here? What's to really be excited about here? Yeah, it's really good. It's really good action. And here's what to get excited about.
What's the hook?
Here's what launched several $1 billion of merchandise.
Disney's paycheck right here.
No merchandise at the time though.
No, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. Let's talk about that after the episode.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that they introduced this character in the first episode.
Yeah,
I thought they put enough in the first episode to hook you in that they didn't even have to put the child in there.
Well, and I love it. I love this character. I know so many people at this point, are starting to dislike it. I think it's such a cool idea. Really.
Yeah, and the droid saying like the job was to kill it, and he just looking at it. It's like, okay, not going to happen. He's made his choice. Which that's a big deal. He's going against the nature of the job. And there's our hero moment there. There's our poster.
There's the sketch that launched the show really from Jon.
Yeah, basically.
Or Dave Filoni.
Well, and them establishing that, it's 50 years old, but the droid saying, different races can be different, can look differently or age differently, because we knew that Yoda was 900 years old.
Yeah, it's an amazing episode, really. I mean, I've seen that episode so many times. It's really cool.
It was an amazing.
You get setting, you get introduction to characters, you get multiple planets, you get your driving force, you learn a little bit more about who the Mandalorian is and what his needs are. You get a little hint of extra culture, you get a good action scene, and a fantastic cliffhanger that draws you in and wants you to come back. That was good. That was really good.
Yep. When they were first promoting the series, like back at Celebration, they had these cool little posters, and they showed scenes from this episode, like the guy getting chopped in half by the door. That brought down the house. Like this was going to be such an exciting thing to see, and no one in that room, well, in the audience anyway, had any idea that the Star Wars landscape was going to forever change by Baby Yoda. So
how did they keep it secret? That's what I want to know. That was pretty amazing.
Well, that's the point that Jonathan was going to bring up was the fact that
from the public,
being Disney, they definitely wanted to merchandise the heck out of the Baby Yoda character. And Jon Favreau had to basically try to use any pull that he had at that point. I mean, he's basically using his Marvel credit at that point as having created, the MCU essentially. He had to pull all the credit that he could muster with Lucasfilm and with Disney to say, we want this last moment to be something that has real impact. We want this last moment to be something that has real power in a way that it totally did, because none of us saw it coming, because there had been no publicity for it whatsoever. And Disney was freaking out because Disney is the merchandising money-making machine. And because of that, it takes 6 to 12 months to put that kind of stuff out. And so most leaks on character designs and stuff like that almost always happen when they send the designs for characters out to the toy people and to the merchandise people, and all that stuff gets leaked. So it means that they couldn't do anything to toy people or merchandise people for at least until the episode was airing, which meant that put then a 6 to 12 month delay on any toys coming out. It was a year. Basically, they missed an entire Christmas season, missed a year before they could get Baby Yoda out. And of course, now
I think they've more than made up for it, though.
I think I personally
made back their investment.
I own at least 4 of that character in various forms.
Yeah.
Yeah, interestingly enough, a similar thing happened for Frozen, but for a completely different reason. With Frozen, it happened because they honestly genuinely did not think that movie was going to hit. They had no idea that when the first Frozen came out, it was going to resonate in the way it did and capture basically every 3 to 8 year old girl on the planet.
You're telling me. Oh my
God. They were all going to want stuff from Frozen. So a similar thing. Frozen came out in November. There was nothing that first Christmas. By the following Christmas, they had everything. Every piece of merchandise imaginable came out for Frozen. So that's twice that Disney, once unintentionally, once intentionally missed the boat on that.
Yep. Some of that with Toy Story as well.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
So can we talk about the character's name there at the end? So at first nobody really knew what that little green guy's name was, right?
Yeah, so everyone dubbed it Baby Yoda.
The internet dubbed it Baby Yoda. And then a little while later, Jon Favreau came by and he's like, well, we actually want to call it the child. That never really caught.
Yeah, no one grabbed onto it.
And it wasn't until later they gave an actual character name. So everybody, even like Disney executives, started calling the character Baby Yoda, and they're like, shouldn't be doing that. But
I think Favreau
that's what the culture latched onto.
Well, Favreau still calls it Baby Yoda to this day. Still, I've seen recent interviews as of like, I don't know, maybe.
Does he call it Baby Yoda or does he call it the child?
He still calls it Baby Yoda from time to
Interesting.
time.
First they said
Well,
that's your
I just
trademark.
wanted to jump in and say that we do actually have people watching on Facebook. So don't have a question, but a couple comments from a Facebook viewer, Chris Amarim. I think this was just him kind of popping in his own comments as he was watching the episode with us. So first he went ahead and said, basically commenting on the Mandalorian action, he's in the thick of it, business as usual for him. And then basically said, and if he is smart, he keep the mask on more so that in the moments to show, because he is so skilled. And then I'm not sure what his last comment was. Good question.
That's what we were talking about, keeping Baby Yoda a secret, because now even with Star Wars trying to be secretive, there was leaks out, when all the sequels were filming. Shoot, there's already pictures of from the set of the Acolyte, and almost anything is leaked well before it's ready.
Yep. So that's what he was asking about. It was like, how were they able to keep the secret? And like they said, and at the time, it really just came down to Jon Favreau's pull, as Disney wanted to get it all out there, and promote that character and stuff like that. And he fought really hard to keep that last moment, because I know for me watching it again, I'm watching it and as with all this stuff, I tend to watch it first so that, to decide if I'm going to watch it with my daughter and stuff. And we got to that moment at the end and I'm like, yeah, she's going to want to watch this. As soon as I saw that character, it's like, she's going to fall in love with this character. I'm going to be spending some money on this at some point.
I imagine
she's got a plush version. She's got a motorized version. She's got, I think I bought for at the end of the year, I bought her the Chia Pet version.
I can imagine at 4 a.m. that the day that this dropped, that somebody flipped the switch and the factory just started churning merchandise out.
Maybe they had a send button ready to go.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, I remember after Force Awakens, like the big toy everybody wanted to get was the BB-8 Sphero, right?
Yeah.
So, I remember, like, as soon as they came out with any sort of Grogu toy, like the first one, that was what everybody wanted to get. The big toy that everybody wanted to get was just that first child baby.
Oh yeah, that was a big deal. Now it's everywhere. I mean, it's on toothpaste.
Yeah, the Disney merchandising machine is insane. I mean, they get products. They get characters on every single product imaginable.
Yeah.
So can I bring up one more topic before we start to kind of wrap up? Sorry, Dale. Did you want to?
I was going to say I think the first. Baby Yoda merch I got was trading cards, and that was about 4 months after. So you have to imagine it'd be easier for to print out a piece of paper, with a picture on it, than the dolls and everything like that wasn't until later in 2020. I feel like.
Yeah, we've got at least two people between Shane and Dale, and I know Dan's got more behind him there. That we've got people who definitely have some toys and definitely have toy rooms here.
Oh yeah.
So I just wanted to talk about a little bit about fandom and leading into and after the Mandalorian, right? So the prequels that come out, they're kind of divisive, to say the least. It's an understatement. And then the sequel movies came out. Last Jedi, definitely Rise of Skywalker, caused lots of rifts in fandom when it comes to.
I would say those were more divisive than the prequels at this point. Honestly.
Yeah, because people were starting to argue like, "Oh, this is good, this is terrible, this is not Star Wars," and just kind of like people were starting to feel like sad and betrayed by what they thought Star Wars should be, the quality that they expected it to be, and I felt the same. I mean, I love most of Star Wars, but when it comes to like the black eye that Star Wars fandom was starting to get in the public after these movies, there were so many stories about like, toxic fandom who hates, any Star Wars movie that comes out. But I think with The Mandalorian, it was a way to kind of reset the love for Star Wars.
Yes.
It's very rare.
Reunited people.
Doesn't like the Mandalorian shows.
Yeah, it did. It reunited people, Jonathan. Yeah, you're onto something there. Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah, it's easy to say you love The Mandalorian because it's there's so much for so many different people to kind of enjoy and latch onto. Old, yeah.
Well, really reignited my love for Star Wars because I had to say by the time Episode 9 came out, I was pretty low on the franchise, just out of disappointment mostly. But Mando and what they've done with Boba Fett and now Obi-Wan has really brought me back, a lot more.
Yeah, and the fact that it's a show, like it's recurring, right? Once a week, new episode, shorter chunk. It's what you kind of thought that a Star Wars TV show could be like and would be like. And so you have, if you didn't like that one episode, don't worry. There's another one coming next week on Disney Plus. They didn't just drop all the episodes. They made you wait for next week, just like old school TV shows on networks, right? And that's good too, because it's a way to build momentum, get more people interested in the show as time went on.
For me, it always comes down to none of the external qualities of a thing to bring the divisiveness as to whether people love it or people hate it. It really has to come to the intrinsic value of the creators. Something's either good or it's bad, And to me, what Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau brought to it was they made something so good that no one could have a problem with it. They made something that's so well integrated, old Star Wars, new Star Wars, in a way that made it well, that basically it's just such a well-written, well-produced, well-directed, all the craftspeople involved, the music and the effects and everything are so good quality, but all in service of a good story, well-written and well-told and well-performed. And to me, if you do that, nothing's going to.
It's about character and story always, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it had something for everyone. Obviously the Baby Yoda there for the kids, but just the quality of the storytelling has that water cooler moment there for just the general public, not just Star Wars fans coming back to the fold. It's hey, I need to get signed up for that Disney Plus because I just saw this new show over at my friend's house and it's outstanding. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point about the water cooler moment, because I had people who were not Star Wars fans learning about, who's this Baby Yoda that's all over pop culture. Now there's this interest in the good Star Wars thing again to bring people in.
Yeah, I think a lot of the complaints I always saw is that when they brought out the newer episodes and they brought out Solo, is they're putting out something every year. It's too much. And then they came out with something like Mandalorian, and nobody's complaining about that anymore. It's because they brought in, they're not going back to old characters. They're bringing in new mythology, and it leaves you with a lot of questions. You want to know more about somebody's background, whereas before you were seeing old characters and learning more about their background that you kind of cared. A lot of people didn't. So,
well, I have an interesting perspective from a teenager. So my daughter, she has some friends in high school, and they're talking about The Mandalorian because the next season's coming out, and they really dislike The Mandalorian, not because of The Mandalorian itself, but because of Baby Yoda, Grogu, because they feel like it's just marketing and selling toys now. And I was trying to explain to my daughter that, because she loves Mando and all this, but she's trying to argue with her friend saying it's not that. And I was telling her that, hey, Baby Yoda was not even on the shelf when the show was out, so it's, in my mind, it's not a marketing thing. This was driven by the art of Star Wars, from the ideas of George Lucas and Ralph McQuarrie, and it draws so much from that. It's not, in my opinion, a sellout type of thing. I really don't think
I think it'll all depend on what they do with the character in season 3. I mean, I think if they show that there's a reason for Grogu to be back, in season 3, and the character does some interesting stuff, and there's really an arc there, then I think that kind of knocks off that argument that, if we don't get anything interesting in season 3 or any reason that Grogu is back, then I'd say they're just pandering and catering.
Now it's a cash grab. At first it wasn't, but now it is.
Yeah. So Dale, that takes us a little over an hour.
All right. This episode, before we take off here, this episode won 2 Primetime Emmys for outstanding production design and outstanding sound editing. So a good way to start off the series and to start off Star Wars on Disney Plus. Before we take off, James, what's happening with Rocky Mountain Fan Force?
Yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to do this every week on Thursdays, and you can always join us on the live stream. We have an online event coming up February 18th from 2 to 5. I'll be posting up some information on that. You can find it on our Facebook page, Rocky Mountain Fan Force. And our group, typically we're going to be doing probably in-person meets one month, and then probably an online event the next month. We also are trying to participate in the St. Patrick's Day parade coming up. We'll be joining the 501st Mountain Garrison and Rebel Legion and a couple other groups, and hopefully we'll have some slots where people can sign up. And Jonathan and I are working on trying to get people on that list. So please join us.
All right, good to hear. All right, so with that, we'll be back next week, one of the nights, Tuesday or Thursday, and that's going to be Mandalorian Season 1, Chapter 2, The Child. And we'll talk more about The Child next week. I'm sure we're going to say The Child a lot.
Probably will come up with a time or two. Well, thanks for leading us this week, Dale.
You bet.
And I'm going to go ahead and take us out. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.